What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zeph Wargames, and today I'm going to bring you the standard video of to buy or not to buy grand creators. So, Grand Creators. What do we find in Grand Creators? Well, it is a collector rare set, meaning that it comprises itself of ultra rares and super rares with 10 collector rares. It does introduce us as the TCG to the brand new archetypes of Exo Sisters, Grand Tokens, or Grand Adventurers, I believe it is now called in the TCG, and Punks. Now, I'm going to go through the original OCG names. I will put up on the screen all of the cards that we know for each individual archetype as well. We do also receive a lot of Inzektor reprints because we get the world exclusive Inzektor spell, which is actually incredibly good for the deck itself. So in total, it does provide you with technically 4 archetypes that you can pick up from this set. Now, just to get into the nitty gritty of each of these sets, each box in the European area will contain at least 3 ultra rares. One of those ultra rares will be replaced with a collector rare, should you get that, and they work out as a 1 in 3 boxes. Whereas in the United States, what you're going to be looking for is they actually get 4 ultra rares a box, and one of those will be replaced with a collector rares, but a collector rares are 1 in 4. So they will get 3 collector rares from a case, and the European areas should still get 4 from a case. So it does change it up a little bit, depending on what collector rares you are looking for, and if you actually care about the collector rares in this set. So, as the title suggests, I will take you through exactly what is included and kind of the play styles of those particular decks, and then boil it down to whether it is worth buying into this set or not buying into this set, especially considering that literally a week later we will have pre-releases for the Battles of Chaos, and then a week after that is the official release for Battles of Chaos itself. So, diving head first, let's go into the main hunt for this particular set, and that would be the Brave tokens, which I believe have been changed to like Grand Adventurers or something along those lines. Now, this is the hype engine that is going to be coming over from the OCG, and the engine consists of 3 spells, 3 of the monster that searches you out the spell, alongside 1 equip spell, if you want to play it, and 1 Griffin Rider. So, how does this work? Well, the Seal of Armaturis, again, apologies if they have changed the names of these, but I will put the images up on the screen so you see exactly what I'm talking about. So this is the spell card that you can activate it, and it will produce you a Brave token. It will then allow you to set or search your deck for the continuous spell, which is basically an adventure, which you discard a card to add a Brave token monster from your deck to the hand, which is where you get the Griffin Rider from. Now, the idea behind this is that by activating the Brave token spell, you're not allowed to activate the effects of normal summon monsters for the entire turn. So if you've normal summoned Alistair, for example, use this effect and then try and use this, you can't. If you do it the other way around, you can still normal summon Alistair, but you won't get the effect to search out Invocation. Keep that in mind because it does limit the decks that it can be utilised in and abused to max potential. Anyway, the way it works is the Armaturis, again, I will put the pictures up on the screen, can search you out the spell card. So you're getting basically 6 copies of the particular spell card. You activate that, you produce a Brave token, you then get the continuous spell. The continuous spell then makes you discard a card to then search out the Griffin Rider. You can then special summon the Griffin Rider because you control a Brave token, and straight away there the Griffin Rider is basically an Omni Negate, so it protects you from stuff like Nibiru's, straight up Evenlies and stuff like that as well. You can then play the equip spell, which basically means that if you're going second, you equipped it to a Brave token and it allows you to bounce 1 card your opponent controls. So you can kind of see the utility for that, but the baseline is that this engine is a base of 8 cards as an engine itself, 9 if you want to include the equip spell. So it does straight away nearly eat up a quarter of your deck just to produce an Omni Negate. Now, the pros of this are, of course, that it is an Omni Negate that does not use your normal summon. And if you rely on cards that let you special summon, so you look at stuff like Phantom Knights, you can actually abuse the board a lot more. And then that's where the main meta relevance is coming from. The idea is that you'd use the Brave token if you're fearful of stuff like Nibiru, and then you're able to pretty much play your turn, making sure that you restrict yourself to 3 monster zones, including 4, including the Link zone as well. So being able to build off the back of that does give a lot of decks quite a lot of utility, and it does give you a lot to kind of move around with and play around with in order to protect your boards. And if that does survive on the board and they don't get rid of the Griffin Rider with a Nibiru, it then gives you an additional negate to play with during your opponent's turn. Now the best thing about the engine as well is that it does drag out a lot of hand traps. It does drag out stuff like Imperm, Ash Blossom as well when you're trying to activate certain things and search certain things, and it can be very, very good in that route. Maintaining everything else that you play as well does mean that you can continue to build your plays, and that's kind of the whole reason of why this is such a hype engine. But when you stop to look at it, you do need to take into account a lot of consistent factors. A, does your deck rely on its normal summon? If the answer is yes, you don't play the Brave tokens. Normal summon effect, to be specific. 2, do you have space in your deck for a 9-card engine or an 8-card engine? If you want to be very, very risky, you could cut it down to technically like a 5-card engine, because then you'd play the 1 Griffin Rider, the 1 Continuous, and then you'd play 3 of the spell card and maybe 1 of the monsters, so maybe a 6 engine. It is really down to you. It depends on how consistent you want to be to get to that engine. So again, that's something to highly consider as well. The other thing that kind of makes it more expensive, because I believe the pre-sales for this particular cards, as they are all ultra rares, and believe it or not, they are all collector rares, apart from the Griffin Rider and the equip spell, they all sit at around £50 each, and then the collector rares could possibly be about £100 for someone that wants to max rarity out their deck. So not only is it an expensive engine, on top of that, you do need to consider quite a few factors, and it's still yet to be proven and tested here in the TCG. The last thing you want to do is spend £300 on an engine that doesn't do a lot for your particular deck or doesn't actually make it in the meta. Yes, there's a lot to kind of consider when you've got to keep in mind that there will be a banish drop in soon, hopefully the day this video comes out, and then you're also looking at stuff like the new Battles of Chaos. You look at the effect of Crossout Designator on the TCG as well, and how certain elements we still have that the OCG doesn't, kind of puts them back a step. So what I'm saying is you might be able to pick them up cheaply at pre-order, or you might be able to pretty much pick them up a little bit once the hype dies down. And you've kind of got to say, well, is it worth me buying boxes for something like this? And arguably, if you just want the Brave token stuff, sad to say it's not. Like, you would have to buy a case and then pull incredibly well in order to get your playsets of everything. That's the issue as well, is that all of the ultra rares you need, apart from the continuous spell card, which searches you out the Griffin Rider, you need at free. So you're then hoping, I think it'll be a little bit easier to get in America because they get 4 ultras a box. So you're kind of balancing yourself back off with that way. But in general, I think it's going to be a very hard engine to just pull from a single box or get anything you want. Moving on to the second art type, which I would probably say is more relevant, is going to be Inzektas. Now, the reason I'm saying this above the Exo Sisters and the Punks is because of the world exclusive card. Now, the world exclusive spell card, again, I'll put the picture up on the screen for you, allows you to equip an Inzekta from the deck, or I believe it lets you equip a Inzekta spell card as well from the deck. So it does give you a lot to kind of play around with, and I believe Joe mentioned to me that it does create a 2-card combo that can end you on a multiple negation board, which is really impressive. And again, if you're able to maintain a normal summon, that's probably where a bit of synergy comes with Brave tokens. But by the time you've bought that, you're then turning an Inzekta deck, which could possibly be budget off the back of the Grand Creators, into something that's incredibly expensive that might not be worth investing in. So apart from the world exclusive card, nothing really else is being produced for Inzektas. Just a couple of reprints. I believe we get a Super Dragonfly and a Hornet, possibly. Moving on to the second art type, which I was actually really hyped for until I realised or read into its effect a little bit more, and that's the Exo Sisters. So the Exo Sisters, again, I will confirm by putting up on the page here how many collector rares that they have. So the Brave tokens have 2 super rares, 3 collector rares, and 3 ultra rares. The Exo Sisters have, I think the Brave tokens actually have 1 more super rare. So the Exo Sisters have 3 ultra rares and 1 collector rare, and then the Punks have 3 ultra rares and 1 collector rare. So you can kind of see where they're putting their faith of the high rarity cards. Anyway, so the Exo Sisters, you get 4 main deck monsters, you get 4 extra deck monsters, and then I believe you get 2 spells and a trap. Now the way the Exo Sisters work is each of the main deck monsters will summon another counterpart or do an additional effect for drawing or burning your opponent or gaining life points if you have its counterpart, its other sister. Now the biggest issue is with this deck that it relies on your opponent to banish cards. Now, I thought initially when they first came out that it was if a card is moved from the graveyard, or is it if a card is banished from your opponent's graveyard. So I was like, great, DD Crow, activate that. I can control when I trigger the effects of my Exo Sisters to turn into the XYZ counterparts. Because the XYZ counterparts have an additional effect when they're summoned on that specific turn. So you don't really want to be summoning them during your turn, you want to summon them during your opponent's turn. Now, this is obviously very good against the specific decks that banish. So specific decks like Tri-Brigade, it will be very good at. But I would like to think that a going second Tri-Brigade player, if they know what Exo Sisters do, which they probably will do by game 2, they're going to want to clear that board off first before they start banishing stuff to then trigger the Exo Sister XYZ effects. So with any deck like this, when it relies on your opponent to do something specifically, the general Yu-Gi-Oh player will read that and not do it and specifically play around it unless it's something that is a common factor of all decks. So for example, if a card said, if your opponent summons a monster, which 9 times out of 10 they will do, or if they set a spell or trap card or activate a spell or trap card, do A, B or C, then obviously it's going to be a much better deck. But when it's like, well, if your opponent does this niche effect of banishing a card from the graveyard, which is only specific to certain decks, get an effect, by the time they've done the banish, they're probably already going to get something strong enough to deal with the card you're bringing out. So it's loops and roundabouts that probably aren't going to get you far, which is why it's gone from me being an interesting deck to build up and play, just by that clause of going, well, it's kind of not going to be, unless the format becomes only Tri-Brigades, which I doubt it will do, even after the ban list, it's not going to give you much advantage. And then when you look at stuff like the Sword Soul, they can banish tennies from the hand. If they banish from the graveyard, the chances are that they're going to gain some form of advantage before you get your XYZ. And then when you get your XYZ, it's probably not going to be enough to do anything with. Moving on to the final art type. The final art type is, of course, punks. Now, the punks, in my opinion, look the best. I love the neon colours of it. I love kind of like the theme behind it as well. So it's kind of like, it gives you that cyberpunk feel. And obviously it's got all of the neon lights and it looks very colourful and very, very good. But it doesn't do anything. Now, I've been talking to Rob about this. Now, it probably will do some stuff. But like, of all of the art types that are within this set, it actually does the least. It's very difficult to kind of utilise what it needs to do pure. And one of the art types that might work best with it would, of course, be Virtual World. The reason that would work well with it is because, obviously, the psychic types, the idea is that the higher level 8 monsters of the punks need you to tribute a monster to summon themselves down, or you can discard them from the hand to get you a punk spell or trap. So you're only going to get one or the other, and they can't be revived from the graveyard. So it's kind of like, we'll give you this, but we won't give you that, when ultimately if they gave you both, it wouldn't be the end of the world, and it would actually give you more to play with. It wouldn't make it a top tier, meta tier 0 kind of deck, but it would still make it a very viable deck to play around with. Now, obviously, a lot of these decks will need a bit more research, a bit more playability, just to kind of give you the overall end of it all. However, as it stands, it does look like Brave tokens are going to take the top spot of what you're hunting for. And then I think for Legacy, and the fact that Inzectors are actually highly playable with this new card, they'll be the second ones. Then it comes down to Punks and Exo Sisters. Both of them will have their own particular following, but in regards to actual effectiveness in the game and the meta, it's going to be very, very low. So, now that we've gone through what you can actually get in the set, let's go over the other collector rares that weren't mentioned. So the other collector rares that are going to probably be standing out for most of you guys will, of course, be the collector rare Torrential Tribute and the collector rare Solemn Strike. So obviously the rest of them split within their own art types. Now, the Torrential Tribute, in my opinion, is actually more hype than the Solemn Strike, for the pure fact that Solemn Strike already has an ultimate rare, which in my opinion looks incredible as it is. So it's kind of going to go down with that balance of, all right, well, it'll be cheaper than the ultimate rare, but is it worth keeping? I reckon that the Torrential could possibly follow suit with something like the Rivalry. It won't go as low as the Rivalry, but I think you're going to be looking like £50, £60 for Torrentials. I think Strikes could easily be asking for about £100. But I still think that Ultimates would be valued a lot higher, meaning that the market could fluctuate on that Solemn Strike as a collector rares as well. In my opinion, those two will be the ones you want to be hunting for. Possibly any of the collector rares for the the Brave tokens, mainly the spell card and the monster, for the pure fact that the monster people want to be playing free of, but I think the spell would be a guaranteed free of. Like, this is a card that you would be playing whether you're going to have a smaller engine or the bigger engine. So to me, I think that could probably float along the sides of the Drytron ritual spell. So that dropped to about £50, but I reckon you could be asking about £100 for those. It still doesn't compare to the Toon Chaos Collector rares because they just had so many legacy ones. You had your Stardust, you had your BLS, you had your Chaos Envoy as well. So they were sitting the £100 marks as first editions, if not higher. Whereas I think with future collector rare sets like this, they're actually dropping down quite a bit, and you're probably looking at about the 50s to 60s and maximum £100 mark. So that's taking into account the higher rarity stuff and the value of this. Now let's look at the box itself. Now obviously the box would come with 24 packs. I've already mentioned that the American areas would get 4 ultra rares. One of those ultra rares would be replaced with a collector rare, and the European areas would get 3 ultra rares per box. One of those would be replaced with a collector rare. Obviously you've got more chance of getting collector rares from the European areas, but you've probably got more chance of completing the Brave tokens in the American areas. So it's kind of give and take. Now they usually retail between anywhere, depending on your local environment, from £3.50 a pack to probably about £3.95 a pack, depending on where you're going. A box could then range from anywhere from £55 all the way up to £70, again, depending on where you're purchasing these boxes from. So let's go with the middle ground. Let's say the box is £60. What do I need to pull from my box in order to make my money back? Well, if I pull a single collector rares, which means I would then get 2 more ultras, that collector rare should probably make your money back, but then it means that all you're relying on is the 2 ultra rares that you have pulled. If you were to pull 3 ultra rares, unless you see the Brave Token spell card or the Brave Token monster card, you're going to struggle to get your money back. Getting one of those will give you probably 50 of your £60 back, but then that is at the top of the market. There is possibility that will fall down to probably about 40, 30, depending on where the market shifts once Brave Tokens has had its time to settle in and the ban list has come into effect. So again, it's going to be very difficult to make your money back from one particular card or one single card in this particular set. Now let's look on the bigger scales. Let's look at cases. Well, if you're going to buy cases, like I said, the European areas will get you 4 collector rares. So the 4 collector rares, again, you could be looking at the very base minimum of £50 a card. By doing that, let's say in a case you get 3 of all of the Brave tokens, going lucky on that one. Probably more so for the American side than the European side. But let's say you get the 3 of each of the Brave tokens. So that's, if let's say they go for £40 each, let's say you get 100 for a playset of each of those. That's £200. Then you're looking at collector rares at 50 quid each. Going for the average. If you get one better, great. So you go for the 4 collector rares. So we're probably going to be looking at about £400 take back. And that's getting rid of the best cards within the entire set, leaving you with a negative £200 at the base minimum of a case, if not negative £300. And from that £300, you need to make your money back using Exo Sisters, Punks, and the Injectors, which to me is going to be incredibly difficult to do, as the rares and the supers aren't going to be demanding much value. They're probably going to be demanded about £1 to £2, maybe £5 maximum on a super, and then maybe £1 to 50p on a rare. And again, it doesn't really have rare staples that a lot of people are going to want. Like when they gave us the previous one, where we ended up getting Skullmeister, Prankertops, they were kind of cards you could arguably be that a lot of people didn't have, or were just easy trades at that particular time. You look at going back to Toon Chaos, and again I say this because it was the best set, you had stuff like Gamma. And Gamma as a playset was already a £5, so you're like, cool, I got loads of these, I got like 20 from my case, if not more, that's £5 here, £5 there, and you were making your money up as you went. So I think it is very, very difficult to gain and maintain a huge value from either a big investment or a little investment with this particular set. Now to me, I would probably say that the average way of doing this is, in the UK, you'd probably go, right, I'll chance my luck and I'll buy 3 boxes. Because then if I get a collector's rare and I get one of the Brave token cards, I'm already pretty much paying back what I've bought. So it then means that I get to maintain at least another 7 ultra rares. So that's then 7 ultra rares that you can then do what you want with, whether they're £10 each, £5 each, £20 or more. So that gives you a little bit more room to play around with. And obviously if you don't pull a collector's rare in those 3 boxes, you kind of consider it as a massive neg, because you're kind of like, yeah, well, unless I got really lucky on the Brave tokens, it's going to be very tricky to make money back. So ultimately, if you're looking for value out of this set, I would personally say it's quite difficult to do so, unless you get extremely lucky, because you are pretty much hunting for one blinkered particular archetype in that set, and that's kind of what you're aiming for. If you're looking to actually get any of the decks, again, it becomes a little bit difficult. Now, what I would say about this is, if you're looking to get Punks, if you're looking to get Exo Sisters, buying a box isn't the end of the world, because they actually have a lower ultra rare count as it is. So you're actually got a bigger market, or a bigger area to make profit from, or get the cards you need. For the pure fact, for example, if you don't care about the Brave tokens and you pull a Brave token, that's an easy trade for the remainder of the Exo Sisters or Punks that you may want. If you do it the other way and you actually pull the ultra rares that you do need, you're in a very good stead, because you've pretty much got most of what you need from one box. And if you pull a collector's rares, again, great, you're in the money. So ultimately, the way this boils down to is, if you're looking to try and get value off of this, it's going to be very, very difficult. If you're looking to get all of the Brave tokens and buy boxes and not actually buy the singles, you're going to struggle. If you want Exo Sisters or Punks, or possibly even Insectors, definitely worth buying boxes because I feel it would be easier to maintain that. Now, yes, you could buy singles, but the way I see it is if you buy one box, you ride your luck, you see how it goes. You either get ultras that you need, and it means that buying the singles is going to be cheaper, or you get an ultra that you can actually make the singles for pretty much free, and then you get to maintain all of the other cards that you have pulled. If you pull a collector's rare, happy days, then that is going to maintain and probably get you Exo Sisters and Punks, depending on what collector's rare you got. Anyway, I hope you found this video quite helpful. I will be opening up some boxes for the channel and we'll kind of see how our luck rides, just to see how it goes from there. I am interested in the Exo Sisters. I know someone that is interested in the Punks, and I still think they look really cool. If I get the Brave tokens, great, I'll play around with them and see what effect it will have on the meta and the particular decks that I'm looking to play and move forward as well. I will look at producing a video for you guys to look into what decks can play and actually abuse the Brave tokens at best potential, and that will probably come after the ban list. I'll also look at building an Insector deck for you because personally, I think as a legacy deck, this is something that I never got to play back in the time, and I really want to see the effect of the new spell and what it can produce for the deck going forward. As absolutely always, guys, I hope you found this video helpful and informative for your choice to whether you buy or not to buy the Grand Creators set. As absolutely always, guys, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.